We're living in a world where there are more problems than solutions. A raging pandemic, climate change, aging, cyber breaches. The list goes on. My name is Jermaine Tan, and in this series, I and fellow millennial Ching Shu-yi will be meeting people our age who think they've got the answer to these problems.
Let's do it!
This is my 5-year-old niece.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Her world is a happy, innocent place. But growing up, she faces an uncertain future. Why? Because our planet's heating up like never before. And the last decade has been the hottest on record.
The increase in global average temperatures has actually triggered a chain reaction of climatic change. And our polar ice caps, our glaciers, they're all rapidly melting, causing sea levels to rise.
100 years from now, the sea surrounding our little red dot could rise by up to a meter. And the effects of the melting ice will be amplified in Singapore. Climate change triggers erratic weather patterns. Intense rainfall leads to flash floods. Storms and droughts threaten our food security. Our precious water supplies will also be affected. If we don't find a solution soon, my niece faces a lifetime of terrible consequences. I want a different future for her and for all of us.
I'm on a mission to meet young changemakers in Singapore who are responding to one of the biggest challenges humanity has ever faced. Living in the 21st century, there are many things that I feel I cannot live without. Here's the thing, every single bit of my activity requires electricity in some way or another, and I'm clearly using energy all day.
So, what's the problem? It's all about fossil fuels. And 97% of Singapore's energy comes from burning them.
This releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. But just how much am I contributing to climate change?
To discover my carbon footprint, I'm meeting the founder of eco-inspired social enterprise Sustainable. 26-year-old Samantha Thien saw firsthand the lack of ocean protection, which in turn has accelerated climate change. So she started organizing workshops and events to build up a local eco-conscious community to advocate for real change.
I wanted to compare my carbon footprint versus yours.
Okay, sure.
Can we do that? Okay, you
Okay,
can phone,
we
right?
can do that, yeah.
But as the numbers add up, I'm beginning to regret taking part in this exercise.
It says here that my carbon footprint for 2020 is about 9,700 kilograms of carbon dioxide. What was yours?
Mine's 5,000.
That's very, very low. So what's a sustainable goal that I need to strive towards to save this planet?
So according to this carbon footprint calculator on the website, it says 3,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide a year.
Do you have any suggestions on how I can work on cutting down my carbon footprint?
Yeah, of course. Instead of eating meat, try vegetarian options such as tofu, soy, legumes. Take public transport. You could get a bicycle and cycle around. Shop secondhand or go thrift shopping. Bring your own reusables like reusable cups, reusable containers and cutlery. And instead of using aircon, turn on the fan, especially on days that are a lot cooler.
Wow, that's a lot. But if I want real change, it's time for action. action.
How about on a global scale? Where does Singapore really stand?
So Singapore ranks 27 out of 142 countries on emissions per capita. There's actually 12 positions ahead of China, and China is one of the world's biggest emitters. So for such a small country, we are such big emitters.
Part of the reason is because we use so much electricity. And the biggest culprits are our industrial and commercial sectors, making up about 79% of our total electricity consumption. So, how can we reduce this?
Okay, so I'm waiting to meet a 29-year-old who's developed an innovative way to slash energy wastage in hotels and service apartments.
These places cater for guests staying from days to weeks, months, or years. But the problem is, guests only pay one bill, regardless of their energy consumption. It's a carbon footprint catastrophe.
Hey Jermaine, it's Sai.
Hi, Sai. I was not expecting to meet you this way. I thought we were going to meet face to face.
I know, I just thought it would be best if you're socially distanced.
I want to find out more about these smart sensors that you've developed. Just how game-changing is this solution?
Well, what we've done is made it super easy to retrofit hotels and improve their energy efficiency and sustainability. Why don't I show you how it's done? What we noticed about buildings was that a lot of them didn't consume energy based on the variables like how many occupants are there, what the weather conditions are.
So, Sai Krishnan and his co-founder Max Pagel designed a solution that detects when no one is in the room. It wirelessly communicates the information to a smart thermostat, which in turn increases the temperature or turns off the air conditioning to save energy.
If you look at a typical service apartment or hotel, air conditioning is actually 50 to 60% of the total energy costs. Less than 10% of guests actually turn off their air conditioning when they leave their rooms.
So how much energy consumption have your clients been able to reduce?
The SensorFlow solution has helped this property reduce on average 23.3% on their HVAC energy consumption. And the energy saved just from that pilot, if you take that over a year, that's the same as powering about 300 4-room HDB flats for a month.
I've never actually considered just how excessive the constant energy consumption in service apartments can be. Just imagine if we expanded the use of these smart sensors to all of them and to the 69,000 hotel rooms all across Singapore. You've got schools, hospitals, malls, offices, and even homes.
But it would be 7 years before SensorFlow makes it to the mass market. Till then, what can we do to reduce our carbon footprint?
Solar is now much cheaper than traditional fossil fuels, which are really a lot more polluting to the environment.
Well, just as I'm struggling to blow these windmills, Singapore really struggles with producing green renewable energy. And there are some really good reasons why. You know, the average wind speed here is just 2 meters per second, and that's not even half of what's required to power a wind turbine. Our calm seas limit opportunities for tidal power. We don't have a river system with fast-flowing water all year round. And this is the closest that we can get to a geothermal energy source. Our country is just too small and land scarce for sustainably grown domestic biomass. You know, like agricultural crops residue and... Ooh. But there is one source of clean energy that we do have an abundance of. Sunshine. Our proximity to the equator means consistent daylight hours all year round and up to 9 hours of sunshine each day. If it doesn't rain...
The amount of sunlight striking the Earth's surface in 1.5 hours could power the world's entire energy needs for one whole year. But solar accounts for just 2% of our global electricity production. In Singapore, it's only 1%. But the government aims to increase this to meet 3% of our projected electricity demand by 2030. And one man is doing his part to help achieve this.
Belong?
Hey, Jermaine.
Hi,
How
nice
are you
to
doing?
meet you.
Bolong Chiu left a high-flying job as a consultant for Fortune 500 to help solar developers and installers locate rooftops that can potentially be installed with solar panels.
We trained computer vision models to be able to identify rooftop outlines from satellite imagery itself. Within each rooftop, now computer vision models are predicting what is the rooftop material and the rooftop type to be able to be used in our solar estimations.
Apparently, some rooftops are better than others. For the best exposure to the sun, the roof should not be shaded by surrounding buildings or trees. It should be slightly tilted eastwards. And it's also cheaper and easier to mount solar panels on metal roofs.
You'll also want to look out for buildings with really high energy consumption or building occupants who have renewable energy targets.
So your software actually provides all of this information for energy companies?
Yeah, sure. Let me show you. Ideally, you want to target buildings with above a 20-year lease terms, right? Because your solar panels are good for 20 to 25 years. And then look at the estimated rooftop solar potential, the clean energy generation.
So if you look at these projects here, these are all massive projects which would be able to generate about 30 or 50% of the building's energy consumption.
So why aren't we seeing more rooftops with solar panels installed in Singapore?
A lot of people still think that solar is really expensive, but actually in the last 10 years, the cost of solar has reduced by 89%, and it's now much cheaper than traditional fossil fuels, which are really a lot more polluting to the environment.
I'm starting to see a potentially brighter future for our sunny island, with solar photovoltaic technology taking over our energy needs.
7 of the super trees at Gardens by the Bay have got photovoltaic cells in their canopies to harvest solar energy and light them up. Floating solar systems are being constructed at 3 of our reservoirs, and when this one at Tengeh Reservoir is completed, it'll actually be one of the world's largest. How cool is that?
The clean energy generated can actually offset 7% of PUB's annual energy needs. But why stop there? We can even start a new trend with solar-powered wearables. But here's the thing. The bulk of our carbon emissions is not coming from us individuals or households. It's coming from, you guessed it, our refining and petrochemical sector. In 2017, they produced about 75% of Singapore's industrial greenhouse gas emissions. And it's not just the emissions that are worrying. The oil refinery process produces a physical byproduct, carbon waste. Eco-entrepreneur Yao Zhiyi discovered that Singapore's oil refineries produce at least 40 tons of carbon waste each day. This figure is one of the driving forces behind Zhiyi's research at the Sembcorp NUS Corporate Lab. He's devised a way to convert the carbon waste into something really useful.
Currently, people just burn it off as a waste and send the remaining ash for landfill. So this raises greenhouse gas emissions, potential toxicity to the environment. And in addition, the Semakau Island, which is the only landfill site in Singapore, will run out of space by 2035.
That's right, and that's actually within our lifetime. So that's
Yes.
quite worrying.
My colleagues and I have developed our own process to convert this carbon waste to activated carbon.
The process starts by extracting the heavy metals from the carbon waste. The leftover carbon waste is passed through a filter press and pore enhancement process to create powdered activated carbon, which can be used in wastewater treatment, gas purification, as well as making battery electrodes.
So how does this process actually mitigate climate change?
Our activated carbon system can help to reduce the carbon footprint by 85% compared to the same amount of carbon waste being disposed by burning at landfill.
Innovations like Chi's provide new purpose for the byproduct of our dirty energy processes and helps us chip away at our large carbon footprint. But would more of such technology be enough to prevent a climate disaster?
If all governments were to set targets similar to ours, we would hit 3 to 4 degrees of global warming.
Despite our new electronic age, paper has never really gone out of fashion. We still use it to write, read, wrap, and wipe, and read some more. But here's the problem. The trees that we cut down to make paper are our front line against climate change. Trees capture carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas known as CO2. They prevent CO2 from building up in the atmosphere and warming our planet. So, fewer trees means more CO2. That's why we need to use less paper and recycle what paper we have to use. According to the Publishers Association, print still makes up 81% of global book sales revenue. To combat this senseless waste, this group of undergraduates created Singapore's first ever sustainable online bookstore. Their aim is to find new homes for books that are already printed, so they're not discarded after reading. Prices are also determined by an algorithm. No haggling required.
In what way is Thrift actually more sustainable than other similar business models?
I think the main aim here is actually to change the way we consume books. There's an average of 52 books per household, and if you put that at about 1.3 million households, that's over 60 million books in locked-up supply. Sometimes when people choose to donate their books to thrift stores, they actually can't handle this amount of volume. So what we do is also to work with these partners. So for example, here, these boxes actually have over 1,000 books.
It's a lot of books.
Yeah. So using our system to actually quickly arrive at evaluation, and then when books are not in a very good condition, we will hand them off responsibly to a paper recycler. This is particularly important for us because the paper recycling stats for Singapore actually dropped by 12% from 2018 to 2019.
Today, Thrift is holding a book fair with over 2,000 pre-loved books on sale. They believe that reaching out to customers in person can lead to a stronger awareness of their sustainable reading movement. Xavier is an avid reader, but he's never purchased a pre-loved book before. Hamza would only buy second-hand books if they have vintage value. So I've invited them to Thrift's book fair to persuade them to take a chance on pre-loved books.
Actually, a lot of the books here are in really good condition and they're up to 70% off. Does that kind of, persuade you a little bit?
The discount is quite nice.
I see. A lot of these books are actually donated from households who are like clearing out their houses. They could have really old books here.
Exactly.
All right, well, I hope you find something today.
I hope so too.
If Thrift can engage enough individuals, then change could be in the air. Because our trees matter like never before. Singapore was once teeming with trees. But after 2 centuries of development, 99% of our original forest is now gone.
Singapore is actually warming up twice as fast as the rest of the world, and this is just one of the effects of climate change.
25-year-old Estella Ho was one of the organizers in Singapore's first climate action rally in 2019. The event brought together 1,700 young people, demanding a more sustainable Singapore.
Do you think trees can talk?
There's been new research that shows that trees communicate with each other, and scientists have referred to this as the wood wide web.
So if trees had like social media, right? What do you think they'd be even posting about?
It would probably be a selfie with the caption, just trying to live my best life, and a hashtag, leave me alone. Yeah.
So Singapore pledged to peak absolute greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, and from there, halve it by 2050. Do you think this is enough?
Yeah, absolutely not. If all governments were to set targets similar to ours, we would hit 3 to 4 degrees of global warming.
Surely larger countries like China, India, the US, they can make more impactful changes than Singapore, right?
To a certain extent, yes. But I think Singapore especially outsource our emissions to a lot of developing countries, including China and India. If we reassessed how we interact with the world, we would realize that given how small the population is, we actually do have quite a large carbon footprint per capita.
So how do you think Singapore can actually contribute to averting a climate disaster?
I believe that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because of COVID to rethink and rebuild our economy in a way that makes sense for a low-carbon future. And that also includes addressing and reducing the size of the petrochemical industry in Singapore, given that it contributes to about 45% of our national emissions.
Singapore has already begun a project to plant 1 million trees by 2030. Today, I'm joining Estella as part of NPark's tree planting at Springleaf Nature Park. Forest restoration has proved crucial in sucking up carbon, lowering temperatures, and buffering against erosion and rising seas.
Oh my God, it's so slanted. It's gonna grow this way.
So do you think that there are enough tree planting activities in the world to save us from the worst effects of climate change?
It takes at least 10 to 20 years for trees to mature to the point where they can sequester a sizable amount of carbon. And I think at the rate at which we are producing carbon emissions as human society, tree planting won't keep pace with that.
A new ambitious green plan has been announced to reduce the waste sent to our landfill by 26% in just 5 years. And get at least 20% of our schools carbon neutral by 2030. We can't undo our wasteful past. But if each of us can just take our first baby steps in pursuit of a sustainable life, maybe there's hope for our future generations.